We're ready to talk about Chris Hedges releasing a statement on Twitter this morning that I guess we should go ahead and pull up. Do you want me to do it, or do you have it handy, Gavin?
I got it right here.
Cool. Gavin, you sent this to me. Chris Hedges tweets. I don't know if he tweets this, but I think actually somebody else is in charge of his Twitter, but this is, the text that he allegedly wrote, right? I was just informed by Max Alvarez, the editor-in-chief at The Real News, that they will no longer run my show. The reason for the cancellation, he said, is that my critiques of Biden, especially for the genocide in Gaza, jeopardizes his nonprofit status. My last show with Dennis Kucinich, who is running as an independent for Congress in Ohio, was removed from the site. Chris Hedges. And immediately I was like, that seems really strange. I have chatted with Max Alvarez. He's always been a super great guy. No reason to doubt his judgment. We had a great conversation when we were like we're still a nobody channel, but we were an absolute nobody channel. And in his bio on Twitter, he had like, oh, of course, I'll come on your podcast. And we've had great chats with Max Alvarez. So I actually reached out to Max and I was like, yo, do you have a comment on this? This seems pretty direct. Like, oh, I was fired because of my political beliefs from the Real News Network. Do you have a comment on that? Haven't heard back from Max directly, though we did put the word out in, Vanguard world to be like, hey, does anybody know about this? Does anybody know directly? And I've heard back from some sources that I trust that this might not be the full story. So I'm going to reserve my full judgment for then. But what's your analysis, Gavin? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, this took me totally by surprise, caught me completely off guard, for the very simple reason that Robert mentions in chat. Max Alvarez is a boss. I love Max Alvarez. He's dope. He's one of my favorite commentators, and I think he's done a great job editing the Real News Network, which is what he spends a lot of his time doing these days. So this seems totally just completely incongruous with what I know about Max Alvarez and what I know about the Real News Network. Let's just take a quick look over at their Twitter page and see what kind of stories they've been doing lately. The most recent one on their page is students organizing for divestment from Stanford, Indiana University, University of Michigan, and other schools share experiences and lessons from the ground. And that article is called Inside the Student Intifada. It doesn't exactly sound like some pro-Biden, liberal rag.
It's not.
Yeah, not at all. Their commentary is unambiguously pro-Palestine. And I've never seen a pro-Biden puff piece be published on the Real News Network at all. The only possible thing that I could come up with as to why potentially this might have happened, if we're to believe Chris Hedges, which I don't have any reason not to. I don't think he would just come out here and lie. But the only thing I could, potentially think is like what he mentions about the nonprofit status of the organization. I don't know a lot about, nonprofits and stuff like that, but the only theory I have is that maybe their nonprofit status exists on the basis that they report objective news and don't dabble as much in opinion commentary or something like that. And perhaps Chris Hedges was kind of veering into that realm with his recent interviews and shows, and instead of just giving objective news reports, maybe he was just editorializing more, and it wasn't. I'm not
but
sure.
Plenty of non-for-profits have editorial sections, right? I mean, that's a protected First Amendment right. That would be against the law for them to try and jeopardize your right. I guess unless they have to stay uniquely nonpartisan as their terms. This is all stuff we don't know, right? But just to fortify, Max Alvarez, this dude is not a Biden simp. I remember even at one of the toughest times to call out Biden, this dude was out here doing a labor podcast for in these times, rail workers of the world unite. And he had a bunch of people on. I think even Crystal Ball was one of the people that he had on Breaking Points. Maybe that was for something different. Either way, he's always done fundraising things. I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt that this guy's a good faith actor. This guy does working class podcast work, working class news work. So I'm just reserving judgment, but this is definitely strange, and I definitely want to know more. It does I don't know. I would have liked to have a little more like information, right? I just would have liked. I guess Chris is waiting to share that. I don't know. We could weigh in on Aaron Mate's speculations if you want to. He was the top comment under your tweet, Gavin. I'm not sure what the fuck he had to add.
He was basically just saying like, so sorry to hear about this. It's a loss or something. But Max Blumenthal actually did chime in with a pretty lengthy post here. He says, after the highly suspect ouster of the Real News founder and longtime director Paul J, which I actually wasn't like aware of. I didn't know that had happened. Did you, Zach?
No, I'm not. So let's dig into that, I guess. Paul J is a journalist, filmmaker, founder, and editor-in-chief, and host of the Analysis News. He was founder, CEO, and senior editor of the Real News Network. I'm trying to find out until when. He parted ways with the Real News Network in 2019. Interesting.
Huh. Weird. I have no idea the context for his exit. We'll have to look more into that. Either way, apparently, that was like, 4 or 5 years ago. But Max goes on to say, TM Scruggs, the lone sugar daddy of the Real News, has driven this outlet into the ground with his erratic personality and reflexively imperialist views. The Real News will now follow on hollowed out or defunct online progressive outlets like Alternet, Salon, TruthDig, and many others into oblivion.
I tell you something funny?
What up?
That's like Salisa's entire resume from when she was in college. She worked at Alternet and TruthDig, and she got published in Salon, and that's how she got on that Tucker debate. But it's true. She's talked to me about that all the time. Like there aren't any like real lefty publications left to write for. That's why she's doing the KCUR thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to agree with everything Max says here, but I unfortunately do kind of agree that the Real News will probably follow in the footsteps of outlets like Alternet and TruthDig. It doesn't seem to get much traffic. Unfortunately, I rarely do see people sharing the really good work that is published on the Real News. So unfortunately, I do kind of agree with him there. He says
wasn't Chris Hedges publishing on TruthDig? Where was he at?
I believe he was publishing on TruthDig
that
back
was
in the day.
Rich lady that financed that, and then she decided she didn't want to after Russiagate, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, LOL. Anyway, it says these organizations rose to prominence during the George Bush post 9/11 era, marketing themselves as anti-war alternatives to the establishment, then gradually collapsed under the weight of liberal foundation donors, Obama worship, then Trump era Russiagate hysteria, while their staff became infested with dysfunctional conformists driven by the current thing. I've known Hedges for about 2 decades and learned a lot from him throughout that time. I'm excited for his next act as a truly independent journalist. So yeah, I mean, I guess I have mixed feelings about this. I'm going to wait to hear from Max and get his side of the story, because I really do have a hard time believing that it was really just this simple, that they were like, sorry, man, you're being a little bit too tough on Joe Biden and the Democrats. We're trying to run a pro-Democratic Party ship over here. I really do struggle to, believe that. But I mean, if that's the case, definitely a bummer. I don't always agree with Chris Hedges, but he's still an important voice. I liked the fact that he had a show on the Real News. I like tuning into it every once in a while when he was interviewing someone interesting.
Because they basically just picked up the On Contact show that he was doing with RT after RT got banned. RT America, got banned from YouTube basically. I don't know. Yeah, like I'm with you, Gavin. Bummer. I don't support banning people because of their free speech and their opinions. This just seems like there's some holes going on here. It's very hard for me to just believe that Max Alvarez woke up one morning and was like, you know what, you've been a little too harsh on the administration, pal. You got to get the fuck out of here and pack your bags. And portraying it in this really reductive way makes me wonder what else is there. You know what I mean? And then Max also, and again, I take everything that Max says with about as much salt as he puts Coke up his nose. So bear that in mind. He made some decent points in there, but I also don't know anything. I can't say for sure about any of the like behind the scenes accusations he made. Oh, this like lust for like being pro-imperialism. Like that doesn't really make sense. Like, there would be an effort to crack down on their coverage of the student protesters, and if in any instance, this one, right? And we haven't seen that, as Gavin laid out. That's the top thing they published 50 minutes ago. So I'm just waiting for more news. I hope to hear back from Max. I don't know if I expect to. Probably not. We're not like a fucking outlet, right? but I wanted to at least be respectful and be like, yo, I want to get your side of the story because I think that you've done great work. I think Chris Hedges has done great work. I'm disappointed that we won't get to continue to watch that show. I don't tune into it often anymore. I'm going to be real. If it turns out to have been a ratings thing, I might be a little bit at fault. I probably haven't watched it in like a year and a half. Because it's, the thing about Chris Hedges that I will say, not to kick him in while he's down, goddamn, but he just kind of repeat himself a lot. We hit the same nail on the head kind of every episode. So if it comes out to be something like that,
I will say I just pulled up the YouTube, and from the looks of it, his videos actually were doing pretty well comparatively to the other content on the Real News Network. Like his views would get, this one only got 43,000 views, but this one had 212,000 views. That's quite a lot. 224,000, 165,000. So his videos actually were like consistently getting decent views. This one called How Private Equity Conquered America got over 300,000 views. That's pretty strong, actually.
That is strong. Yeah.
And it doesn't look like the normal videos on the Real News Network channel get a lot of engagement, usually around like anywhere from 1 to 8,000 views, just taking a look at some of the more recent ones. This one has 13. But yeah, a lot of their videos, even ones from like the Dave Zirin podcast, which I know we both really like, that only got like 3.2 thousand views compared to some of the ones from Chris Hedges. So that is odd. It doesn't seem to be a ratings issue.
Well, yeah, that makes it more sus now. That makes it more sus. Like I just kind of imagined that it was like maybe like it's a save face. Like, your show's not doing that. Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is then. Like, I think that Dennis Kucinich is like a well-meaning guy too. Like, why draw the line at the Dennis Kucinich episode? Yeah. I disagree with him on like, weird stuff like the RFK alignment, but he quit the campaign when RFK got really behind Israel, weirdly, right? So I think he just was willing to put aside the vaccine skepticism to like oppose, the duopoly, which would not have been a choice I would have made, but I guess I could rationalize. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not trying to fence it. I'm not trying to cape for Max Alvarez and the Real News Network. It's not like we really know the guy. But I've always assumed that they were one of the good ones out there. And so I want to assume that there's more to this story. I want to assume that it's not as cut and dry as, hey, yeah, some guy up top said, fire this asshole because he's a little bit too on the nose when he criticizes the government. Like, that would suck. That would make me feel a lot worse about the Real News Network.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, I mean, it is really hard for me to believe, just because of how much good reporting, even in the last couple of days, has been published on the Real News Network about the student intifada, the Gaza encampments, and all that stuff. So, really,
calling it a student intifada in its own sense is like way more radical than any of the, even like Salon Magazine's not like, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't look at Salon Magazine if I know what they're reporting on nowadays, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely
like a place that Glenn would publish, which is crazy just to think about how far it's fallen.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep you guys updated. We'll definitely let you know if we hear back and get some more details on this story, because it is definitely confounding. I don't really understand what to make of this or what to believe, but I'm sure more details will come out in the near future. So we'll keep you updated.
Yeah, absolutely. If we hear back anything or if we find anything, we'll let you guys know. Because like I said, I mean, it's a bummer either way, right?